because that's in part 2. What parts will apply?
Now, my lord, see part 1. This is all women. So prohibition is that a man will not have a union with all the persons named in part 1, and similarly a woman will not have a relationship and will be prohibited from having a relationship with the males mentioned in part 2. My lord, it's what, exactly the same thing. Now technically, my lord, father is missing in part 1. I am just posing a question. So a man cannot have a relationship with all those who are named in part 1 who are women. But technically it can include a father. I am only saying technically. Similarly, my lord, in part 2, a woman cannot have any relationship with all the males mentioned in part 2, but technically it includes a mother. My lord, it's not there. It's just a conundrum, my lord. But my lord, if you read it now, the way I am saying,
Yeah.
if you read it the way I am saying, Lord, man and woman as a person. So a person and any person mentioned in part 1 and a person mentioned and any person mentioned in part 2
Will apply now.
So both will apply now.
Both parts.
They'll be both cumulative.
Correct.
Club them.
Correct.
You're saying club them. So what you want to read it as, Mr. Rotegi, as one understands, is a man instead of a man, any person or any of the persons mentioned in part 1 and 2 of the said schedule. Simple. This is what you're saying.
So,
Both
according to you, if two
Yeah.
men are getting married
So
under the special,
consequently, my lord, once it is person, then 1 and 2 will coalesce and become one. But in fact, it is better reading. If it becomes one, part 1 and part 2 will coalesce into one list. And then
so if it's two men getting married, it's not just part 1 which will apply. Likewise, if two women are getting married,
Correct.
it's not just part 2.
My lord,
according to you.
my lord. It just so happens to fit, my lord, when I was doing this. That's how it fits. See, my lord, for example,
But this is also a tacit indication that the Special Marriage Act didn't contemplate people of the opposite sex getting married, actually. Oh, sorry. I meant same sex.
my lord,
Same sex.
with ultimately, my lord,
Yeah.
one can say you're doing violence on the conventional.
It was 1954.
No, one can say you're doing violence by doing all this. But, my lord, if this has to conform to the constitutional declaration, it has to be this. Otherwise, this will become unconstitutional if the declaration is granted. We don't want it to be unconstitutional. We want to utilize it.
Actually, I was telling brother that one of the relation I just saw is sister's daughter.
Yes.
Column 30. But in many communities, in many
Right.
areas, it is almost an intrinsic right to
Right.
There is a proviso.
Custom, yeah.
There is a
So
proviso.
therefore, we are
Section
such a
4D
varied
proviso.
country that
Yes, my lord.
there are
Lordship is right.
instances which are-
There is Section 4D proviso, which talks of where it's
Custom.
permissible under custom.
That is saved.
So I was only flagging
That is
even
saved.
these
Justice Bhatt is right, my lord. If your lordship
very
sees.
difficult. I'm saying it's very difficult to put down in hard words where you have such a varied
Yeah.
norms and customs and
Now, my lord, kindly see section 4.
Very fluid.
Conditions relating to solemnization. Now, 4.1 refers to person. So there is no problem. 4.1a also refers to a spouse. B refers to party, no problem. They are gender neutral. Now see C, my lord. C has males and females. You leave it as it is. If two men are getting married, it is 18. If two female or 21, if two females are getting married, it is 18. You don't need to change it. My lord sees, this is only sees, my lord see.
Whole idea is that you go beyond your.
Yes,
saying
yes.
that. Then again, why?
Why
revert to
male
it
and
there?
female?
See,
Then
then
you are
it
saying
becomes
person.
you're flitting in and out.
Yes.
Comes to prohibitions, for one, you
Yes.
revert back to your, and then if there are problems when it comes to transgender persons.
Yeah. Yes. 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 Now, my lord, for example,
Then you have to read it like that. Person.
Yeah.
So how would you read?
only thing is, my lord, sorry.
How would you read, say, if you were to substitute the word male and female? You would say,
Now, so, my lord, one way to read is the person.
yes,
If you read it as a person, then it will give a dual age. What will be 18? What will be 21?
then,
That be the problem. I mean, I don't mind reading it as a person. So it will be a person has completed 21
No, it can't.
and the person is,
So for the purposes of the main part which you seek a
Yes.
definition of, where it's a person, for the main part,
my lord,
it's a person.
Yes.
Neutral in the sense
right,
that
neutral.
it is gender neutral. But for C, for purposes of C, you have to, you say we will.
So you retain male and female because there are two ages, my lord.
But then you are addressing only.
but you only addressing male and female.
My lord, there is a proposed bill to increase 18 to 21.
Right.
There is already a bill because they find that 18 is also too low.
Right.
For child, my lord, marriages, 18 is also too low. So they want to make it 21. The moment 18 becomes 21 for women,
That's a slightly dangerous argument. Then.
no, I'm only indicating. My lord, I'm not an argument.
In fact, interestingly, before just Narsma and me, this part that the female shall be the age of 18 years was challenged by Mr. Ashwini Upadhyay.
Yeah.
And we dismissed the petition saying that if we hold that that part is unconstitutional, there'll be no minimum age of marriage for women at all. A 4-year-old girl can then get married. So we said, therefore, look, we'll not.
Your lordship may read it up.
Ashwini came here.
So
Remember?
this is the second. Does it impact, how does it impact those who are a heterosexual couple? Because then you will be looking at this interpretation in a different.
Yes, yes, absolutely right. Because we can't forget the heterosexual group
That's right.
because they can also get married. So we can't forget it. So keep that and keep it as it is.
No, then in that case, what you're saying is for sex relationship, this is the person. For heterosexual couples, for heterosexual
Yes.
marriages, part 1 and part 2 apply.
Right.
That is one more.
That is one way. Yes. Yes.
One way. That is
No, correct, correct. So your lordship is right. Keeping the distinction in mind for the heterosexual and for, my lord, this.
And then there's a third way, which is for a same-sex male couple,
Yeah.
it will be 21. For a
And same-sex female couple will be 18.
would be 18.
Will be 18.
I don't know.
That you deal
Do
with.
it exactly for the transgenders.
I,
Is to make
Then we are
everything as 21 for purposes
yeah,
of.
no problem. We have no problem.
Then if
Now see, my lord, 12.
you go by,
Sorry. One moment, please.
if you go by the act which
Yes.
Sir pointed out
Yes.
yesterday,
Yes.
there are so many other spectrum varieties. How do they get accommodated? When you look at them, how do they get accommodated? Work that out because
My lord, they want to deal with that. Otherwise, my lord, I will cover all the fields.
Section 4 guarantees them, my lord, the option to choose gender they manifest. My lord, a male will manifest as.
So ultimately, you're going back to the social stereotype which you want to avoid.
My lord, that is because we are maintaining
No,
equality.
not a question of because.
Sir, the minimum is 18, it cannot be 21.
One second, my lord is saying something. My lord is saying.
No, I understand. So ultimately, you say you go back there, but for here it is this, and for normal for heterosexual couples it is whatever they are. So this interpretation has to be threefold for this enactment.
Lord, it syncs with, my lord, Section 4 only says
It syncs with what you want. It suits your purpose.
no, no,
The
no.
court has to.
Milord, the Act guarantees the manifested gender, Milord.
Very well.
Act guarantees the
But then
manifested
you
gender.
explain.
All right,
Your Lordship may see that.
allow, yes.
Because the transgender will have to fall in one or the other, my lord, for that purpose.
Anyway, you're breaking
Your
up the
Lordship will see that.
submission, so we'll hear Mr.
We'll address
Vishwanathan
that.
on that.
Yeah. Now, my lord, see 12, for example. 12, place and form of solemnization. Now, my lord, 12:1 talks about parties. 12:2 talks about parties. Now, look at the oath. The last line. I, A, take thee, B, to be my lawful wife or husband. You replace it with spouse. You replace it with spouse. That's it. I take you as a spouse.
27.
My lord, kindly turn to 27. No, see 22. 22. Restitution. Restitution, my lord, here also it is husband or wife. Read spouse. Because the third line is aggrieved party. And the explanation is person. So they are neutral anyway.
He also presented.
23 is the same position, my lord, for judicial separation. See 27. Here also, my lord, divorce can be by either party, husband or wife. So you have to read spouse. See, my lord, 1 capital A. A wife may also present. So a spouse. That's all. Then, my lord, 36, 37. Now, this is the right, my lord, only to women, 36 and 37. Actually, my lord, apart from anything else, so many years have gone by that this would be otherwise unconstitutional today. To say that only, my lord, a husband will pay to the wife. Today, in maintenance, under the Hindu Marriage Act, it's either way. It's either way, my lord. If the wife is earning much more, the husband is not earning, the wife will pay.
That's right.
This is an earlier mindset. Actually speaking, it will be unconstitutional today to say, my lord, only one spouse in the marriage will pay on the premise that the husband is the bread earner and the wife is not. So actually 36 and 37 will suffer from that problem. So read it as spouse, give the right to both, not only here, but there also.
I was just.
So, my lord, which will affect, my lord, the rights somewhere else.
Because it's
So-
only, it is only for us that it is
It's
unconstitutional.
only for us.
That is unconstitutional.
Yes, possibly. Yes, yes, yes.
So it has to
This is what I was.
Yes, yes.
How do you deal with this 27(1)?
be spouse.
No, suppose your lordship reads a spouse, 27(1)(a).
Sodomy and bestiality is not.
Problem is bestiality also in it. Huh. Hmm? All right, you. My friend, Lord, wants to say something on that, Lord, let him deal with it. Lord, I want to finish, Lord. I am done, whatever it is. And I am grateful, Lord, my friends will take it forward.
Your Lordship may take. Your Lordship may take it, Willis, that I've heard very carefully the sequence, the preliminary objection part, what my learned friend has argued. 95% will not be repeated, Willis. There'll be some slight overlap here and there. Your Lordship may not get the answer in the immediate sequence your Lordship wants, but I'm going to be dealing with all of it, Willis. Your Lordship may rest assured. And I'll have, Willis, broadly 3 heads of submissions, which will carry me till tomorrow. But, Willis, may I just tell your Lordships?
How long? What's the time?
Well, I was hoping to do substantially today, but I'm now starting late. Willis, tomorrow, sometime pre-lunch or just at lunch.
Can't this just too much?
Well,
Wrap it up today.
Today,
today, it would be-
Your abilities to put it in point-wise form,
No, Willis,
I think should finish it much before today, I thought.
I'll tell your Lordship today. That may not be so, Willis, despite the best of my abilities or lack of them, Willis. Tell your Lordship, this is a matter of some moment. I am not repeating. I'm giving your Lordship, Willis, facets which are important. But, Willis, I'll be going in a...
You can go to 7thly, 8thly, we'll go.
Well,
It's 7 or 8 submissions. each way
Pointillism,
to have a-
pointillism is a virtue which your Lordship is putting against me, Willis. I thought, Willis, I was
We are
propagating a
appreciating your
virtue.
virtue and asking you to stand by your virtue.
Singhi, from the T20 or one-day international, we have gone into the test.
This is at least between a one day and a test, if not a test. Your Lordship will find it, let it flow, Willis. I'll not
All right.
repeat, I won't take your Lordship's time. Maybe there's a slight overlap tomorrow, but today it might not be possible. I wish I had started earlier, but my learned friend had other issues to deal with.
Today, yeah.
Now, can I?
Dr. Singhvi, you will have to.
Today we'll.
See, these matters, you have experiences of more than this country, I keep repeating. Nowhere I say in the world will arguments proceed in a manner where there's some kind of an infinite time.
Your
We are
Lordship
liberal.
is see, Willis.
I think courts are liberal. Whatever, maybe matter of the moment, maybe the most crucial issue, maybe the most issue important for the country. But I don't
matters,
think
Willis.
time frames can spill over.
Some matters, Willis, are evolving. They evolve,
Whatever it
Willis,
may be.
as you argue, and more importantly, as your Lordship asks questions, which is very important to make the matter evolve.
If you don't make us be quiet.
No, I'm saying, Willis, it's more important to make it evolve.
No, I'm saying
Willis,
therefore, if it is a presumption that our intersections, interventions cause a
No,
problem,
Willis, I'm
it
saying just the
becomes more.
opposite.
Therefore, it's absolutely to my mind, I'm very clear, it's absolutely the outer limit for today.
are there any written submissions that have been?
We have, Willis, we have. Let us see, Willis, how it
And
progresses.
I'm confident you will be able to do it.
Dr. Singhvi, I'm sure there's something which can go from the bench to the bar, which is that, sometimes you feel that merely because you had longer time to decide a matter doesn't mean that you decided it better.
No.
Because
The Lordship will see, Willis, how much you
sometimes because you had a longer time, you might have forgotten something also as well. So likewise for the bar as well, if, merely because you have a longer time doesn't mean that you put it across better.
If my chief was not presiding, I was only there, I would just say my attention span doesn't last this long.
Now, Willis,
Any argument.
I'll remind my learned friend next time, Willis, when he seeks time from your Lordships.
No.
When he seeks time
We
from
have
your
done
Lordship
it.
for a constitutional
I have
bench, I'll
done
remind
it.
him
Your
5
Lordship
minutes.
will remember in the arbitration matter.
Arbitration you did that.
You know that I did that.
I have a remedy of
Yes, yes.
curtailing.
That's
Dr.
not true at
Singhvi,
all.
Which I will not share, my lord.
Anyway, Willis, I think,
I have a remedy of curtailing his arguments today, my lord.
anyway.
I'm only saying that all of us, and I include us also as part of it, have to get used to finishing with whatever matter in a time-bound manner, because there are other matters waiting for it to be heard.
Willis, all I can say is, Willis, I've had the privilege of doing the last continuous 5 constitutional benches here. Your Lordship would not have found me taking extra time in any of those.
Yes.
And Lordship, may rest assured, back to back, Willis.
All
Lordship,
right.
rest assured, it won't happen again. But Willis, what is there, I need to, Willis,
Gets
put before your Lordship.
I'm sure I'm confident we'll make you finish.
Yes. But Willis, what is there, Willis, I don't want to truncate to a fault.
Sybil was on that side with him. Right?
Yes. Now, Willis, this matter is,
You
of
said
course,
you're making 3 points, right? Three submissions you said when we.
no,
broke
those 3 headings, Willis, before I come to the 3 headings, let me Willis, just open by saying, what is this matter about? Well, it is of course about those three headings, which are, well, first and foremost, the interpretation of the Special Marriage Act to be interpreted what might be called constitution compliant, consistent with the Constitution, on the touchstone of, well, the larger constitutional values of preamble and all the Part 3 relevant articles. So that is constitutional compliant interpretation. That brings in 21, 19. The operative word is non-discriminatory or a discriminatory exclusion or achieving a non-discriminatory inclusion. That's the most important catchword in this case. That is the first head. The second head, Malat, is going to be the notice and objections regime of the same act. And the third would be, Malat, the relief, which your lordship will modulate or tailor or, Malat, mold in whatever appropriate form your lordship wants.
Just one point on the second point, is there, I take it that there is a petition asking for a declaration?
Yes, in particular, my petition.
No,
Directly, there are more also.
No,
There
no,
are
it's not
several.
right. I just
So
want.
long as
Absolutely.
so long as
The
there's a
matter
prayer,
came for
then there's no.
admission. My learned friend was told, well, rightly that there are other
Well.
matters pending, but he said this is unique
All
to
right.
this point.
And what is the third point you were saying?
Third is remedies. Well, how you
Remedies.
mold or tailor the remedies or achieve a result which is effective, Malat, on the ground. Before I go by these three heads, Willis, the first question I ask myself, what is this case about? And a very brief opening, Willis. My submission is, Willis, that the heart of this case is not about the statutory provision, the reading of these sections as constitution compliant or non-compliant, which are important, the notice and objection regime. The heart of this case is, Willis, the right to choose. The most enduring of all relationships, the marital relationship, regardless of sex and sexual orientation. Regardless of gender or gender identity. And Malus, to manifest the idea of love in marriage, regardless of those distinctions, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity. The right to love, the right to manifest that love in the form of marriage, regardless of these identities, is the heart of this case. And the obverse heart of this case is the discriminatory denial to a section. The mirror image part of this case is the discriminatory denial to a section of the community to do it based on that sex, sexual orientation, gender or gender identity. That's the exclusion. That's the discrimination. Navte Johar was momentous by decriminalization. But it still remains, Willis, in a real sense, little done, vast undone. And your lordship is now traveling from the little done in the journey of the vast undone. Your lordship is trying to do the significant done. There'll always be, of course, things left. So your lordship is removing the next brick of discrimination and exclusion. Exclusion and discrimination is the heart of that issue. Your Lordship has dealt with anti-discrimination as the underlying philosophy of Navtej Johar. Your Lordship is now knitting a more seamless web, if Your Lordship agrees with this side, of anti-discrimination. On several other facets, that was in that sense a relatively small patch. And the other facet of this case at the outset is the recognition that it is not the state alone which threatens these core constitutional values. It is not the state alone which imperils the core values of equality, liberty, fraternity. It is also groups, private groups, non-state actors. It's used in a different context, non-state actors, but it applies here as well. Which are called entrenched and encrusted forces over the years, whether in society or as a constitutional thing. They also
Could be even new forms of organization.
They also need these groups which are here on this side need protection from those entrenched and encrusted forms also. I'm not calling them villains, but I'm saying from a certain entrenched thinking process which can be as invasive of those core values as state action. That's the point I'm making. It can be an R, and therefore, Your Lordship will be dealing with striking by protecting those vulnerable sections from both those facets, state and non-state.
What could be an example of that?
One obvious example would be notice and objections regime. One obvious example. Immediate reaction, but there are many more. I mean, one obvious example is notice and objections regime.
So that argument prevails.
Yeah.
That argument prevails for that provision.
But I'll be giving more examples as I go along, because vigilante groups.
No, the point is social processes being what they are.
Yes.
A declaration of marriage or even the kind of relief that you seek, how will that per se result in your protection? You will, of course, that 7 issue perhaps is the easiest way out.
No,
but otherwise, the protection that you seek would want us to give a far wider declaration.
Now, assume Your Lordship were to hold that same person marriage. I'm not giving into the consequences, is valid. The validation, the legalization of same-sex or same-person marriage is, along with necessary consequences, a very big victory. Your Lordship is not able to eliminate murder. But Your Lordship has said murder in law is wrong. When Your Lordship says murder in law is right, or in this case, something else is right, that is the protection. Once Your Lordship protects me by declaration, I am on the right side of the law.
You're in the right side of the law first.
Yes.
No difficulty. But those groups will continue to operate the way they are, unless what you are saying is the value of this right is such that the state is under an obligation to protect you.
Absolutely. No, that's it. Once Your Lordship.
It's not a mere declaration. We have asked specifically in our protocol.
I am going further. It's not a small. Let us for a minute assume Your Lordship doesn't do what he's asking. I'm all for him. Let's assume Your Lordship doesn't do what he's asking.
The value that you place to fundamental rights.
Yes.
One takes it is the same value. It's an indivisible value.
Yes.
Right to free speech, for instance.
Yes.
Right to association, and all those rights. You can't privilege one over the other.
Correct.
You can't privilege one over the other. Then what you're saying today is you are wanting us to strike another path and say that all these, or at least start with, you give this privilege this and give this right to us, which the state is bound to, provide and protect us.
No, I am not asking for any new right. First of all, I'm not using a Hoffeldian rights positive obligation.
Talking of, saying that you are asking. if that's the argument,
Yes.
now in that sense, there'll be, I mean, we'll be asking the state to do nothing wrong in it. The state is bound to protect it.
Let me very straight away answer that.
Exercise of free speech, for instance, the state plays a role.
Absolutely, Manas. Now, Manas, for a minute, let us not, I do not want to minimize the great advance your Lordship would be doing by merely giving the declaration without even the very important point my learned friend is making. For a minute, I'm testing it by answering your Lordship by testing it. Your Lordship, Manas, assume, Manas, that your Lordship puts you on the right side of the law with consequential, Manas, directions. Manas, the first and foremost consequence of that is that I am entitled to, Manas, seek, ensure, and Manas, demand as a matter of right, state protection for an invasion of what is declared as a valid thing, even without this.
Just sorry, one last question to
Yeah.
play the devil's advocate.
Yes, yes.
What prevents the state from protecting you today? Because it is decriminalized.
Decriminalization is a very small part.
Then
It doesn't give me any of the rights I can demand, Manas, once I'm in a marriage.
Yeah.
Once I'm in a marriage, that it doesn't give
Come
me.
back after lunch.
Get into these nuances, otherwise